All right, folks. Well, we are back with a special podcast edition clip from the Slice Tennis podcast here with special guests, the boys from the Game to Love podcast. How are you?
Very good,
man. Yeah,
mate.
we're great, man.
So if you guys don't know who they are, check out their podcast, their YouTube channel. It's amazing stuff. And they have a really good finger on the pulse of everything tennis, but especially with players on the come up, like guys on the Challenger Tour, guys and girls on the Challenger Tours, futures who are going to be like the stars of the future. And today I want to ask you guys what you think about the U.S. Open not having qualifying. Do you think that the qualifiers are getting screwed? There's probably a bunch of different perspectives on it, but I just want to hear your guys' take on what's happening to these up-and-coming players.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for that, Stephen. I think it's a brilliant point you make, and I'm completely for these qualifiers. It's just bad that they are getting badly screwed, basically.
Yeah.
There's about over like 400 players who are going to miss out on playing qualifiers. If you look at the doubles, the women's tour, the men's tour, and these people survive off it. They need these tournaments. Grand Slam qualifiers are the most important thing for them. And for them to be missing out on this opportunity, I just don't think it's necessarily fair. And granted, they can't because of the whole COVID crisis. It's a very tricky situation we've been put into. And at the end of the day, health and safety is like the utmost priority. However, so is people's livelihood, and these people rely on it. So it's a tough balance for sure.
I think so. True. It's definitely just one of the main points. I know we spoke to a lot of players recently, and they're saying the importance of these Grand Slam qualifiers is because that is where all the money is. Like they said, for a Grand Slam qualification match, even first round, you can earn $8,000, which for like a player who's 200, 300 in the world, this is a huge amount of money. This could be like a quarter of your money for your whole year or something. Yeah. So you take that away from those players, where do they go from there? Like you're back to losing first round of a challenger, earning $400 again.
Yeah, so, and I think something else as well. The magic of the whole tournament is kind of lost because do you not think it's special seeing these qualifiers come and play, being given the chance to be playing with the very best? Oh, they can obviously play extremely good tennis. Like we've spoke to many people on our podcast from lower down the rankings, and the level of tennis they are able to play at is exceptional. So why should they not be given the opportunity to play with the very best, like the top 100, the top 50? Because they can give them a brilliant game. And then for the spectators, which we love watching it. So it's on loads of parts. It's the player, the spectator, the whole special, the sort of the event as a whole. I think it takes a lot from it.
Yeah, I think you guys are totally right. Like it is undoubtedly unfair. And it's hard for me to figure out where to place the blame because it's like, to me, the USTA, I know what the USTA has done. They've had to make so many sacrifices just to even make this tournament happen. And obviously we're getting some level of tennis. We're going to see the top players play. We're not going to see those qualifiers. So it seems to me it's like that was the thing that had to give. Like if they had to have a certain amount of players max in the bubble, you have to cut the qualifiers instead of cutting the big stars. That's just kind of how the unfairness of business works in a sense. Yeah. So like I would agree that the players are totally getting screwed. But it's just, to me, it's just unfortunate in general. Do you think for you guys, it takes away some of the excitement about even wanting to watch the US Open, or is it just going to be a bit of a shame, but you'll still obviously be pretty excited to see some live tennis?
You're still going to have to watch it. It's a Grand Slam tournament. However, like we've got me and Ben, even we have differences of opinion whether we think it should even go ahead in the current state. So
what's your quick take on that? Like, why do you think it should or should not go ahead?
Go on, Ben. You go first.
Well, I still think it can go ahead, and I think it should go ahead. To be honest, I think we've spoken to tennis players, and they think as long as it goes ahead safely, and they take the right precautions, everybody's tested. Like before they fly in, everybody's tested pre-tournament, everybody's isolated in the right way. The same as the UFC have done it, like I keep using as an example. They isolate everybody. They test everybody before, they test everybody after. That's fine. As long as there's no fans there and nobody's doing any of this like meet and greet and anybody's standing there taking selfies with anybody, we're good, I think.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion.
The only thing I want to add to that is we've seen other sports like golf, the PGA Tour. They've followed the exact same instructions. They've done all the safety requirements before. and they've had cases after cases after cases. And it's a case of until we find a vaccine, I think there's always going to be this element of cases of arising. And then when it happens, no sport can be played and everything has to be cancelled. So it's just a big shame that we're going to see like a few rounds of the US Open, then all of a sudden, we get to the quarterfinals and it gets cancelled.
That's what I want to know is how is it possible for the golf to go ahead, and how are there people getting infected whilst it's happening if everybody on the tour, the people who work on the tour, the people who are the players on the tour have all been tested? That's what I want to know, because it hasn't happened in the UFC and everybody's getting tested. Yeah, that's what I want to know.
There must be more moving parts, and people that it must not be as strict with golf. And I feel like that's because they aren't taking the same, like when you're out on the course, it's like you and your cat, like the player and the caddy are basically the only ones touching each other. They might hand each other clubs and they just might not be as worried about it. So like we've seen different players get it and then they get removed from the tournament. My biggest worry when it comes to the US Open is what if we get halfway through the tournament, Dominic Thiem's making a screaming run. He gets to the semifinals, tests positive and has to leave. Like, or the final.
Then what?
They just can't test before the final. That's my take. Like, if it's like 2 days before the final and someone tests positive, you just got to let them play. Like, you have to.
No, the thing is, you're not going to. It's not going to happen. And the whole thing, what doesn't sit right with me is the whole fact there's no fans there. It's just always going to be viewed as an asterisk Grand Slam. There's always going to be a little asterisk next to it. It's never going to be worth the same as any other Grand Slam. This is just my. I've got very controversial views on it. A lot of people don't just agree with me, but I think
it's good. I'm not the same. I don't agree because
but it is though, Ben. If you're being honest,
but it's the same as an asterisk Grand Slam. Like you're saying, are you saying that an asterisk Grand Slam would be when Federer won the French Open because Nadal's not there? Is that an asterisk Grand Slam?
No, Ben.
Oh no, it's different because Nadal's not there. Yeah, but if Djokovic isn't there, Federer's not there, and Nadal wins it. Is that an asterisk Grand Slam?
Mate, I'm not talking about because the player's not there. I'm talking about the conditions they have to play under.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. That it's still the same things on the line, and all the players I've heard in the media, they said everything's on the line. Like, we're not treating this like any differently. We're treating this like we need the money, we need like the points, we need like we're defending points if anything. Like this is their rankings that we're talking about.
Yeah, the last month we've seen some tennis come back. We've watched a few exhibition stuff. We've had the Battle of the Brits. Are you watching them tournaments? And can you picture playing a Grand Slam under them same conditions? The atmosphere, everything, the intensity. Don't get me wrong, the tennis has been quite good.
Yeah.
To be fair, I think the quality has actually been surprisingly quite impressive.
Yeah. However, it's been great.
I just think it's missing something to be playing a Grand Slam under these situations, and I would prefer to see it when everything goes back to normal. Hopefully, we can get a vaccine and things.
And then there's like what would you prefer to tennis to actually try and make a comeback, or would you like to see it just be stagnant for the next 4 or 5 months? That's where that's what we've sort of like touched on. There's been other players who sort of play challenger level tennis.
Yeah.
And there's two contrasting opinions. Like there's no challengers being played at the moment, but there's ATP events being like organized. Yeah, and there's no room for the challenger players. But some of them think if these don't go ahead, challengers might never get organised. But if nothing goes ahead, no one gets to play. So it's sort of like a catch-22. Do you either have the ATP matches going ahead and then the challengers eventually go ahead, or no one goes ahead and then everybody's screwed? Like, what do you want?
But bringing it back to the actual question Stephen asked about the whole qualifier thing, because we've got sort of gone off on a tangent here. Under your same reasoning, in theory, then we should still have the qualifiers playing, right? If they're just everyone's quarantined, everyone's following the same rules. What makes the qualifiers less safe than, say, the whole main tour and everyone else?
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's just the amount of people, JG, and I agree that I think they could have done it. I don't know. There's so many questions about the way this is being organized and ran. And I think we're just going to have to wait and see. But anyways, boys, thank you. Thank you for your opinion. I feel like you guys gave the inside look because I know you've talked to some of these qualifying players who are obviously upset about it. But if you guys want to hear more of our conversation, make sure you check out the full podcast. Link in the description, the Slice Tennis podcast on Apple and Spotify. And check out the Game to Love podcast, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, CastBox.
Yep.
It's all there. We'll see you guys over on the podcast and subscribe for more videos from the Slice.
So I don't have many bagels.
Welcome to the Slice.
Welcome to the Slice.
Welcome to the Slice.